It's cool because you can look at Todd or Ruth and they're going to cue you. Okay? One, two, three. Dance with the Spirit early in the morning. Walk with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life of born. And listen to the Spirit to show you the way.
This time's move.
Dance with the Spirit early in the morning. Move with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life of born. And listen to the Spirit to show you the way.
This time it's sing.
Dance with the Spirit early in the morning. Sing with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life of born. And listen to the Spirit to show you the way.
Let's do it again. Dance with the Spirit.
Dance with the Spirit early in the morning. Walk with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life of born. And listen to the Spirit to show you the way.
Let's move this time.
Dance with the Spirit early in the morning. Move with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life of born. And listen to the Spirit to show you the way.
And sing this time.
Dance with the Spirit early in the morning. Sing with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life of born. And listen to the Spirit to show you the way. Good job.
I'm happy, so happy for that corner.
The
'Cause they're so
dancing,
happy.
the dancing corner. Anybody else want to dance? It's right over here. This might be a dancing one too, or a marching one. Come, all you people.
And if any of you are basses, watch for me because I'm going to get you coming in on the bass note a little bit later. So
And come in with parts as you are comfortable. We'll be singing different parts, and just sing the part that you love to sing. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come now and worship your God.
Okay, basses.
Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come now and worship your God. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come now and worship your God. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come now and worship your God.
one more time. Here we go.
Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come now and worship your God. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come now and worship the Lord.
Yeah. Here we go. Keep going.
Come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come, all you people, come and praise your Maker. Come now and worship your God.
Nice. There's a name for this beat. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing out a new song, oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing out a new song, oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing out a new song, oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God. Have you got it? Here we go. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing out a new song, oh, sing out our God. Oh, sing out a new song, oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing out a new song, oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God.
And blow all the trumpets, so dance to our God.
Oh, blow the trumpets, oh, dance for our God. And blow all the trumpets, oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, shout to our God, who gave us the Spirit. Oh, shout to our God, who gave us the Spirit. Oh, shout to our God, who gave us the Spirit. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God. Back to the beginning, Rachel. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing out a new song. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing out a new song. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing out a new song. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God. And dance. Oh, dance to our God. And blow all the trumpets. Oh, dance for our God. And blow all the trumpets. Oh, dance for our God. And blow all the trumpets. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, shout to our God, who gave us the Spirit. Oh, shout to our God, who gave us the Spirit. Oh, shout to our God, who gave us the Spirit. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God. Nice. Little Brazilian beat there. This might be new for some. Sing along. We're going to do it a few times and you'll have it by the end. This is the day that God has made. We will rejoice and be glad. This is the day that God has made. We will rejoice and be glad. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. We will rejoice and be glad. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. We will rejoice and be glad. Here we go. This is the day that God has made. We will rejoice and be glad. Nice. This is the day that God has made. We will rejoice and be glad. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. We will rejoice and be glad. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. We will rejoice and be glad. One more time. This is the day that God has made. We will rejoice and be glad. This is the day that God has made. We will rejoice and be glad. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. We will rejoice and be glad. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. 1, 2. We will rejoice and be glad. Good. You're just getting it, aren't you? You keep going, keep jamming. You're just getting it. You're starting to get the hang of it. So let's try it again. One more time. I think you really get it. This is the day that God has This is the day that God has made. We will rejoice and be glad. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. We will rejoice and be glad. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. We will rejoice and be glad. Sing it. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. We will rejoice and be glad. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. Singing hallelujah. We will rejoice and be glad. I lost the band. Thanks, guys.
Sorry.
Don't sit down. I want the chorus line to stay there and keep singing. It's good. No, let's keep singing. Yeah, that's great. We're having fun. The president's not here. He's not in the room yet. Okay. It's a song to my. It's a song.
Oh,
I got it's a
yes,
song.
sorry. Yeah, I had the wrong one.
Hey.
Sorry. Here's John.
Are you? It's
Just
a
waiting
song?
for John. Just waiting for John.
Oh, we're waiting for John.
It's a song.
Oh, here we go.
It's a song?
Yep. Yep.
Pardon?
It's
It's a
of
song?
praise. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Okay. It's a song of praise to the Maker. The thrush sings high in the tree. It's a song of praise to the Maker. The gray whale sings in the sea.
Here we go.
And by the Spirit,
You and I can join our voice to the holy cry and sing, sing, sing to the Maker too. It's a call of life to the giver when waves and waterfalls roar. It's a call of life to the giver when high tide breaks on the shore. And by the Spirit, you and I can join our voice to the holy cry and sing, sing, sing to the Maker too. It's a hymn of love to the lover. The bumblebees hum along. It's a hymn of love to the lover. The summer breeze joins the song. And by the Spirit, you and I can join us of all creation. It's sung by all living things. It's the chorus of all creation, a song the universe sings. And by the Spirit, you and I can join our voice to the holy cry and sing, sing, sing to the Maker too. Nice.
That's it. But they're not here, so we gotta
One more song before we get into our afternoon. My soul cries out. We'd like you to sing lots of harmony during the chorus. Yeah, we might have to cycle back. Yeah. Here we go. cries out with a joyful shout that the God of my heart is great. And my spirit sings of the wondrous things that you bring to the ones who wait. You fixed your sight on your servant's plight, and my weakness you did not spurn. So from east to west shall my name be blessed, could the world be about to turn.
My heart shall sing of the day you bring. Let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn.
Nice. Though I am small, my God, my all, you work great things in me. And your mercy will last from the depths of the past to the end of the age to be. Your very name puts the proud to shame, and to those who would for you yearn. You will show your might, put the strong to flight, for the world is about to turn.
My heart shall sing of the day you bring. Let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn.
From the halls of power to the fortress tower, not a stone will be left on stone. Let the king beware, for your justice tears every tyrant from his throne. The hungry poor shall weep no more, for the food they can never earn. There are tables spread, every mouth be fed, for the world is about to turn.
My heart shall sing of the day you bring. Let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn.
Though the nations rage from age to age, we remember who holds us fast. God's mercy must deliver us from the conqueror's crushing grasp. This saving word that our forebears heard is the promise which holds us bound, till the spirit and rod can be crushed by God, who is turning the world around.
My heart shall sing of the day you bring. Let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring. Let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn.
Good afternoon. It's good to be back with you. Did you think we weren't coming back? Right? We thought about what would you all do if we just didn't show up?
Keep singing.
Right? Keep singing. That'd be great. When she's finished lighting our candles to bring us back into this present moment, I will call on to do the Toronto Conference report about right relations. Can I do it from here? She can do it. She will do it from where she is.
But I can start. So in 2015, when the conference further on to ensure that we could participate fully in the closing ceremonies of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that we needed to make, that we really needed to move that work front and center. And so we established a Right Relations Fund, an annual fund that supports any work that falls within the TRC calls to action, and in particular has been able to support a number of key local initiatives, and we're really proud to have been part, even in that small way, of some of the really significant work that you have been doing in our communities in terms of right relations. And the other piece that the conference executive focused on was the importance of education. And so for this past year, one of our key educational pieces has been around acknowledging the land. And because what we had been hearing from folks was, we're not really sure how to do that well, and we're not really sure what that looks like. So our education team wrestled with that. And what we came to understand was that in order to acknowledge the land with any sense of integrity, we really had to understand the history of that land from the Indigenous perspective, and we had to strengthen and commit to relationship with the Indigenous community that we are connected to in this moment. And so that's been a real focus of our education, and we held our first event around that in Aurelia in the fall with Mark Douglas from Rama First Nation, the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, who came and spoke to us about some of his knowledge and shared stories of the history of that land. Our next one will be on Saturday, June 23rd, so mark that date down. And we're focusing on the history of the area around the Georgina Island, where the Chippewas of Georgina Island are, and we were going to be in the community. We can't do that because of some other important work that the community needs to be doing that day. So we are going to be at Knox United Church in Sutton, and we have Brian Charles, who is a member of that community, coming to speak with us. And some of you will have heard Brian. He does the history through the wampum belts. And even if you've heard him, come and hear him again, because every time he tells a story, you hear something new. And he's just such a remarkable historian for us, and such a gift. So please look for details of that and come out. I want to lift up for you, as Eric did already today, the report from the national caretakers, which is the calls to the church. And I echo what Eric said. It's an important document for all of us to read. And it's significant for a number of reasons. It is significant because it is the Indigenous Church telling the United Church how they wish to be in relationship and how they wish to interact with our structure. And it's an important step as a United Church in how we honor the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and in particular, the right to self-determination. So it's just a really, really important document. I want to lift up a couple of things out of it, and so of course I have to get my glasses. And so one of the important points that is in this report is that it identifies the right of Indigenous church communities to choose their relationships within a three-court structure. And that includes the right to dual belonging, to fully belonging to a regional body, and to fully belonging to a national Indigenous body. So as we go forward into our new structure, it's going to be really important to participate in those conversations with the Indigenous church communities when we are invited, to understand what our relationship will be as new regional bodies. And the other important call that really relates to the work we're doing in preparing to become regions is the call to equitable distribution of mission and service funds, keeping in mind the whole Indigenous community across the country. And so they're calling for a policy to be developed that would ensure that there is a percentage of the proceeds of property liquidation allocated to Indigenous ministry and justice work, and that any properties turned over to Indigenous communities be brought up to code before they are transferred. Financial decisions that affect Indigenous communities of faith are to be determined by Indigenous communities, and that relational connection between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities be encouraged to continue. So, and that local engagement and support of Indigenous work is valuable and needs to increase, and that adequate resources, which includes financial support, staff, and space, be included to address the needs of urban Indigenous ministries. So just some really important points that we need to be thinking about as we engage in our conversations about what regions are going to look like. The last thing that I just want to, I want to lift up for you the report of the Living into Right Relations Circle, which you can find on page 65 of your workbook. And I want to let you know that that circle is working really hard to make sure that right relations work is part of the conversation around our new regions. And I want to take a moment. We've been honoring a lot of people today, and there is someone in our court who has been, whose name means right relations work in Toronto Conference. She has been a passionate advocate, storyteller, truth teller, and I don't know what we would have done without her in Toronto Conference leading us through this. So I just want to honor Linda Parsons, who's our co-convener of the Circle. You want me to do prop too?
Yes. I am going to continue to call upon Jody as she gives us the update about our agreement between ourselves and the Presbyterian Church and the Seoul Presbytery of the Presbyterian Church of the Republic of Korea.
So just in case any of you are first-timers, the United Church of Canada is in a partnership agreement with the Presbyterian Church in the Republic of Korea, PROK. And we were approached by the church in Seoul Presbytery to consider having a partnership. And last year, we did an exchange. And so right at this time last year in our court, we were celebrating this relationship with Seoul Presbytery and committing ourselves to continue to be in relationship together. And so over this past year, we've been looking at what that will look like going forward and recognizing that this year was a bit challenging for us to really focus a lot on that because we're also focusing on our structural changes. But our conference executive has named again and again that this relationship, this partnership is a key priority that we want to see move into the regional structure. And because the relationship that Seoul was looking for was primarily with the city of Toronto, we see it being housed in Region 10. So at the last executive meeting of Toronto Conference, we agreed to a memorandum of agreement that had been offered to us by the Presbyterian Church. And in this agreement, we are going to focus on a mutual recognition of internship, so the possibility of internship partnerships, exchange programs for youth, a mutual sabbatical program, so an opportunity for our ministry personnel to consider sabbaticals across this partnership, and also ministry exchanges. So some really exciting possibilities to continue this partnership long term, and we'll be looking at, again, where we house these specific individual pieces as we transition into the new region. But just to celebrate that this is going to be a long-term friendship. And so some of the work we've done in the court this weekend, I think, will be really significant for that.
Thank you. And at this time, we're going to move to a time of celebrating the Life of Toronto Conference. This is In case you don't know, the last meeting of Toronto Conference as it exists in its present form. It may be very easy to have missed that the new regions that have been proposed, Region 10 keeps much of what may feel like Toronto Conference intact. However, we will lose a significant portion of Northern Waters, who will be joining Region 8, and some folks who will also be joining Region 9, and some folks from Living Waters Presbytery will be joining Region 11. And so the next time you gather, in whatever format that takes, you may feel that a little more. And we want to take this opportunity to celebrate our life as Toronto Conference and to celebrate some of the things. We sit here with this gavel, which I was just noticing for a few years, the name of the president of conference was engraved on it. And then it looks like they ran out of space and stopped doing that. So I just want to point out that things are great, and it's nice to have a tradition, and sometimes you just move on from that tradition. But it's good to honor that as well. I'm sure there's a story about how that happened and how it stopped happening and whether this got lost or somebody hid it for a few years because they were tired of hearing it. It represents an awful lot about what we don't do and how we don't have to act, and how we try not to act and react as a body of people. And Jody, I'm going to turn this to you. Perfect. To then turn it to Susie.
So in this, our last session of this last annual meeting, the final chapter of Toronto Conference, we are going to draw our time together by sharing stories and creating a community mural to remember where we've been, share some of the struggles, and lift up our Thanksgivings. And I'm so grateful to two of our staff, Susie Henderson and Donna Rutz, who have put a significant amount of work into preparing what I think is going to be a really meaningful experience for us. And I call on you to take us through it. Oh, yeah. Yes, I do. Yeah.
So in our social media stream and a little bit in advance of the meeting, we've been inviting people to start the storytelling off a little bit. So we have a little short Kickstarter to share with you by way of a video that is a preview of, there's a longer video about 20 minutes that's on YouTube. This one's just 5 minutes, and it captures a few of the voices, many of whom are here today with us, but it's just something to get your own stories started. So if you want to add your own story, feel free to do that. If you can do that with words or with pictures or with a video, and share it with that hashtag that we've been using, TC Your Story. So whenever you're ready, John.
Tiny lights that sparkle and glow in a world much bigger than we'll ever know.
What I found to be the greatest aspect of conference life is the sense of concern for the body of Christ, and that's revealed through the work that the executive has done, through its policy making, and through its generous gifts to inspire ministry to happen, and new leadership, and to help the refugees, and it just goes on from there, and so that's what I really appreciate about conference.
Toronto Conference has been like a playlist. So I'm up at Queensville Hollow Landing United Church. It's my first call, and it's a far drive, and I have a playlist every month. And I just bathe in the sound, and some of the music that I hear, it's comforting, and some of it's challenging, some of it makes me think. And so here I am now, in the midst of this change, even though I've just arrived. And it reminds me of when the playlist has to change. It just has to change. It doesn't mean that the music is going to stop playing. It just means that there's going to be some change. And I'm just feeling really fortunate to be able to continue to bathe in the sound that has nurtured and nourished me.
Conference was a very good liaison place. We didn't always agree, and I'm sure many were wondering where I was coming from, but there was respect and honor to the work of social justice, reconciliation, and what was needed to happen. Most times the support was there. We had many successful events.
One of the saddest times for me was when I presided at Carol Geark, the president of Toronto Conference before me. David Allen and I presided at her funeral, and that was pretty tough. It was a hard time, and I know all of us missed Carol and were really sad when she died.
One of the things that I think was most important that happened, at least during the time that I was part of Toronto Conference, was a change in how we saw ourselves. And part of it relates to money. So at a very early time, there was a point when Toronto Conference, because of a variety of reasons, essentially didn't have any money. We couldn't pay some of our bills. And some of the other conferences in Ontario picked us up, and I've always remembered that. And then within a few years, because of church closures and property sales, suddenly Toronto Conference became very rich and compared to other conferences. And what struck me about that was that we had only become wealthy because of an accident of geography, and that with the wealth came a responsibility about how we would use that money. And so over time, and it didn't happen overnight, but over time, I think we came to see ourselves as people who had a responsibility to other parts of the church. And I feel really proud of that.
And for a young, I was a young woman and a young mother at that time, and I also felt the support of the church in responding to my need and the needs of others of my generation for childcare at the conference annual meetings and eventually for childcare at the General Council, and so felt that I both was heard and also was able to open space for more women in my kind of life place to be engaged in those levels of the church. Going to be, I'm certainly part of the generation that feels it's a great risk to lose these courts, but also confident to be led in new places. So.
Toronto Conference has been a home to me, and for me it's a place I found safety and home, especially when I sensed the call of God upon me. I found the United Church as the church or the home God is inviting me to minister through. And my home came as a result of being part of Toronto Conference. It has been a place I've come to love, appreciate it, and I'm learning a lot from my involvement with the Toronto Conference. Thank God for Toronto Conference. Amen.
We are tiny lights that sparkle and glow in a world much bigger than we'll ever know. We are tiny lights shining so bright in a world we know is gonna be alright. Yeah, we know the world is gonna be alright, 'cause we got all these tiny lights.
So I just want to share one more story before we set you in motion. And that's from the first meeting of Toronto Conference, which was held on September the 22nd in 1925 at St. James Square United Church. There were about 1,000 people present on the floor that day. And they elected the Reverend Joshua Patterson, maybe his name is on the gavel there, who was the minister at St. Paul's Aurelia, who was elected as the first president. And I just want to share with you a sentence of what he said in his acceptance speech. In his acceptance, the Reverend Mr. Patterson thanked the conference for the honor bestowed upon him and said that he'd often wondered why he had been christened Joshua, and now he knew. Now behold, we are crossing Jordan, and you have asked me to lead you, he said. On a more serious note, he said that he would remember 3 words which would guide him and the conference as they ventured out upon uncharted seas. And the words were candor, courtesy, and common sense. So we have another river for you today that will form the basis of our image. And what we've done is we've set up 12 stations across the room. And you'll notice that some tables have some yellow signs on them. Can we see that? Yeah. So this is a map just to get you located. The tables aren't exactly in this order, but this will give you a general idea of where they are. And the different table groups, each of them has a leader who will help the conversation happen. The table groups are milestones. What are the significant moments in the life of the conference? Gratitude. Share a part about Toronto Conference or something or someone who has touched your life. Social justice. Share about the issues you've been involved in or the ones you are proud of in our history. Share the significance of the conference's journey towards right relations, being affirming, becoming intercultural, and increasing accessibility. Share your experience of youth ministry, if that's recent or if that's in the past. What is the legacy of presbytery? What's the significance of women's history in the conference? Okay. And is there a particular place that's meaningful to you? And finally, what part of Toronto Conference mission or ministry has touched your heart? Is there a particular minister that you want to remember? So for those groups, we're going to start off and you'll have an opportunity to do 3 different table groups in this period of time. And the signal that the time has come to move from one table group to another will be offered by the band. So we'll go to the first table group without music, and then the times in between, the band will play, and you'll know that that's your signal to move to another conversation. And we're going to leave that map up there for you so you can kind of navigate a little bit more easily, we hope, to the group that you'd like to join in on. And the role of the table group leader is just to help the conversation happen. So we've created some little bits of art to offer you at each table, but really we want to say that, the storytelling and the sharing is what's important. So as you create your little pieces, I will come by and collect them, and our resident artist, Donna, is going to work on a mural at the front, and all of your work will get incorporated into that piece of art. And then at the end of that, our intention is just to take a picture of that as a way to share it. So we're not thinking it necessarily of hanging it in Jody's office, but we might. So that's the process, and then we'll come together in a final act of blessing with the art at the end of the day, but maybe we'll leave those instructions for that point in time. So go ahead and find your first group that you'd like to join, and the first task will see if the table group leaders can find their table.
Well, I just had to come back there, but yeah, but we'll lose our camp. Are we in the way? That's Susie. If you want this one? Yeah, let's do it.
I think we could keep the podium for the end, but we don't. This is more, right? So if you're okay with it.
Yeah, my worry is the candles.
Well, you can keep the candles. If we can have your front row.
That's the music. Barney Miller sitcom. Time to move, everybody. Move to your next table. Keep on walking to your next table. Shuffle along to the music, everybody. Yeah, feel the beat. Move to the music. Shuffle to the music. Say yeah to the music. Say yeah to the music. They're moving. Here comes Terry. He's shuffling to the music. That's it. That's it. One more time, Ted. One more time. One more time. Yeah. Blisters? That would ruin it. It's like mark for mark. Yeah. So, tell Brianne she's up next.
She knows, yeah.
Oh, shake it up, baby, now.
Shake it up, baby.
Twist and shout.
Twist and shout.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now.
Oh, baby.
Come on and work it on out.
Work it on out.
You know you twist so good.
Twist so good.
You know you twist so fine.
Twist so
Come
far.
on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now.
Shake it up, baby.
And let me know that you're mine.
That you're mine.
Shake it up, baby, now.
Shake it up, baby.
Twist and shout.
Twist and shout.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now.
Twist it up, baby.
Come on and work it on out.
Work it on out.
You know you twist so good.
You twist so good.
You know you twist so fine.
Twist so far.
Come on, come on.
So I'm interrupting your walking because I want to give you instructions for your walking. We've come to the end of our sharing of stories. So what we're going to do, something's beeping here. What we're going to do is, while we sing, "You Shall Go Out with Joy," I am going to invite all of us to form a large circle around the outside of the room. We are going to be in the circle for a few moments, so if you are someone who would be more comfortable sitting, please place yourself so that you're close to a chair and you can sit and still be part of our circle. And if you are a table group facilitator, you'll be coming up here to the front. So it's going to be a little bit of chaos, but let's get ourselves into a really large circle around the outside of the room. You shall go out with joy.
You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands.
And all the trees of the field will clap their hands.
The trees of the field will clap
Their hands.
the trees of the field will clap their hands. Will you go out with joy? You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands.
And all the trees of the field
Will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. Will you go out with joy? You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace.
The mountains and the hills will break forth
Before you there
will
be
shouts of joy, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Hey, let's go! And all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Woo! Trees of the fields will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands while you go out with joy.
Yeah, yep. And then it's this and then we'll hand it back over to Susan for the group photo info? Or no, I'll do it. But before social announcements, would be better. Okay. Closing litany? No? Oh, okay.
Table group leaders, do this litany of Thanksgiving in any order.
But they need a mic. Oh, okay.
No, I'm not on, okay. At the Her Story table, we heard stories of leadership, passion, hospitality, mentoring, generosity, and commitment. We shall go out with joy and be led forth in peace.
At the gratitude table, we heard stories of belonging, creativity, connection, encouragement, conversation, community.
At the mission and ministry table, we heard many stories of grace, generosity, of Fred Vicker of Massey, of the Bordering Home Ministry, of Camp Sugaga, migrant churches. We shall go out with joy
And be led forth in peace.
At the youth table, we heard stories of feeling more well and being opened to new ideas, of having friend-versaries because we've made new friends, of being poked into doing something that became a blessing, of energy for all, and of watching people's relationships grow. and that youth together matters. We shall go out with joy.
And be led forth in peace.
At the accessibility table, we heard stories of great efforts to change buildings, of some buildings where there's no money to do the work, even well-intentioned, of people with invisible minorities experiencing life in a really different way. We felt that overall we needed to educate and understand that we all have to change. And yeah, education is continuous. And we go out with joy.
And be led forth in peace.
At the milestones table, we heard stories of birthing new organizations, of a strong focus on hearing youth voices that has changed, on affirmation and recognition of many parts of the body that have not always been recognized, of actions of solidarity, of actions of public witness, and of strong ministry initiatives. We shall go out with joy.
And be led forth in peace.
At the Legacy of Presbytery table, we heard stories about friendship, learning and growth, beauty, food fun, acceptance, and healing. We shall go out with joy.
And be led forth in peace.
At the intercultural table, we heard stories of sharing food and music from our home cultures, having a safe place to worship, learning about each other's culture, ethnic ministries rally, valuing each person, especially those who came last, and a journey between multicultural and intercultural. We shall go out with joy.
And be led forth in peace.
At the Living into Right Relations table, we heard stories of bridges being built and gaps being lessened. We heard stories that the Korean story was similar to the First Nations story. We heard story about building relationship, trusting relationships. Grateful to work with Indigenous leaders from across the country. We heard stories about the blanket exercise, about the TRC support, the TRC gathering that Jody spoke about when we moved the Toronto Conference annual meeting to accommodate the TRC. We heard about living saints like Peter Kingsbury, Brian McIntosh, and Linda Parsons. And we heard about our Sandy Hill, Vision Keepers, pardon me, forgive me. Our Vision Keepers, Sandy Hill and Jamelda Johnson. That we walk with the people. It's a community, it's a relationship of community and walking with. Sorry, and we shall go out with joy.
And be led forth in peace.
At the LGBTQ plus table, we heard stories of love, hope, struggle, change, acceptance, conflict and loss, and courage. We shall go out with joy.
And be led forth in peace.
At the Places table, we heard stories of youth or camp, discernment, laughter, opportunity, journeying, and learning. We shall go out with joy.
And be led forth in peace.
At the Struggles for Justice table, we heard stories of standing up for the people of South Africa. We heard stories of 1988. We heard stories of the conference Kairos blanket exercise. We heard stories about the writing campaign for people who had been unjustly imprisoned. We heard stories about the Women's March after Trump was elected in Toronto. We heard stories about Black Lives Matter. We shall go out with joy.
And be led forth in peace. We shall indeed go out with joy. And be led forth in peace. We'll hear announcements and a benediction from our President, Audrey, and then as we sing again, we will head out these doors. Those who can will go down the stairs. Those who need, there is an elevator, and our volunteers will escort us outside where we will take a large, fabulous group picture to celebrate who we are.
Nice.
So we'll hear from Audrey first.
If you're wondering what do you do after this event, I will remind you, of course, that we have our celebration of ministry service at St. Paul's at 6:30. That begins at 6:30, so please be seated before then. Also, if you're wondering what could I do for the summer, St. Paul's Scarborough has a summer job for a student. So there are some age issue restrictions on that for a summer program animator. And you can talk to Dan Benson. There he is. So thank you. Also, I do want to take the opportunity to remind you to turn your name tag into the table just outside here on the left. There is a spot for each presbytery. This is the best thank you can give to our staff. So please remember to do so. And please, maybe put that string inside. And I do have a couple of thank yous that I do need to make here. I would like to thank the Multitech Audio for their professional services for this annual meeting. Thanks to Vans and Ben and Nate for all of your technical work. It has been wonderful. And the youth and young adults at conference and their leaders would like to thank everyone who has been open to sitting, conversing, and engaging with us. You are helping to form knowledgeable and strong leaders. The youth leaders have heard from a number of youth that your inclusion has had a huge impact on them, so we thank you very much. I would like to thank our chaplains, Deborah Hart and Sungmin Young. I would like to thank, of course, our General Counsel representative, Eric Matheson, for being here, and our sexual misconduct prevention consultants, Diane Bennett-Jones and Robin Wardlaw, and our GCE representatives, Norm Seeley and Jim McKibben, and our parliamentarian, Beth Moore. And our photographer, Terry McPherson, who's going to make us all look amazing. And to Julie McGonigal, the editor of Insight, for being with us as well. I have thanked our volunteers from Midland, but I would like to thank them again and give thanks for Beverly Bowerman King being with us as a leader as well. And I got to thank the band. Oh my goodness. Todd and Ruth and Elizabeth and Brianne and Ted. I sat down and talked to Todd and Ruth about what I wanted, and I said, I want us to sing. I want people to sing. And you did exactly what I asked, and you inspired us, and you always had the right song. So thank you so much for your leadership. It has been greatly appreciated. I do want to thank Brian, the past president, Brian Ransom, who is always with us. And I feel that we should not just say he's been a long-serving, because people talk about me having been president for many years, and that's just to distract Brian from realizing how long he has been. Either president-elect, which I think was 2013, and then president and past president forever. So we won't call him the long-serving, but the long-suffering. And I do give you thanks, Brian, for your leadership and your wise counsel and your prayers and your presence with us. And I do want to thank all of our staff for all of their gifts. You can see they're still working, folks, and they're going to be working when we go, and they're going to be working cleaning up and doing and enacting everything. And for all of your patience, for all of you, for all of your individual skills, because they are so many and they are so important to all of us, and for your being willing to always go with every change. And help us through it. And the can you, and I didn't think about, and I forgot about this, and please fix this for us right now. We do give you great thanks. I want to particularly thank Jody. I have this weekend messed up all her stuff. And if you know Jody, you know that that's a big deal. She didn't want, she put all of that stuff from that seminar yesterday morning into practice and never once got mad at me. I don't know what her jaw's like right now, but it has been full of smiles. She stepped into the role of executive secretary in the last 18 months of Toronto Conference, taking on a Herculean task of holding us together and helping us to reform into something new. Her professionalism, competence, and vision has seen us through, and I do thank you for that and for your continued leadership in that, Jody. And to all of you for staying and for being here, and specifically for always being so diligent at what we try very hard as Toronto Conference Executive to do, to uphold and be aware of both the voices that we hear and the voices that have not been heard. And I thank you for your diligence in standing up for those voices and speaking them into your table circles and into the court, and for your awareness of so many different issues and how hurting the world is. And I just want to remind you of this, that there is indeed enough love and enough hope in this world, and when there isn't, this is where God puts you. So thanks for being there, and thanks for being here. And so let us go. Too soon we rise, the symbols disappear. The feast, though not the love, is past and gone. The bread and wine remove, but thou art here, nearer than ever, still my shield and sun. That was from the closing hymn of the first meeting of Toronto Conference. And then I give you these words, a simple service of closing from the 93rd meeting of Toronto Conference 2017, and then from this final of our 94th meeting. God, our end and our beginning, after generations of ministry as Toronto Conference, you are calling us to something new. Bless all of our endings and all of our new beginnings, and may we go with hope, go out in joy, and in the name of Jesus, God's Son and our Christ. Amen. Cue the band.
We shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace.